Hello, everybody. So, as Nira mentioned, my name is Oren Ezer. I'm with JFrog for the last couple of years now. And I'm part of the DevOps acceleration team in JFrog. I'm doing some consulting and training and hands-on engagements with technical issues for customers. And that's about it. So with no further ado, I think we can go ahead and start. I hope that you all have your test drives up and running by now. If you created those beforehand, there should be fine and you should be able to work on them. If you were not and you did try to do it in the, I don't know, last hour before we started, then you might encounter some problems. These problems are behind us now, and you can create the test drive as we speak, and it will take some 15 minutes to get started. So do it now if you can, or just use it as you go along. And as Nira said, you will all get the recordings, and the test drive will be available for you for 14 days, 2 weeks. So we're going to cover a couple of topics today. I think we can move forward and start directly with the binary management in general, just to make sure we are all aligned. So basically, the DevOps vision is talking about going on the development area from the planning of what you want to achieve, coding it, building your artifacts, testing them, and get them to the ops part of the organization in order to release it, deploy it, and operate the environment. Obviously, you monitor it and go back to planning for more features or updates. Another way to look at this is that you have some code, some source code in your environment, and you are using some dependencies. Coding these days are being composed out of more than 80 or 90% dependencies code. I mean, third libraries, open source, and stuff like that. And then once you build it, you create an artifact or a software package that can be distributed and deployed. In order to achieve this binary management in a holistic way or in an overall perspective, you need the relevant functionality to manage your binaries. You need it to be done in a secured way, which will promise the cleanness of your artifact and your final product. And you want the solution to be available for you. JFrog is trying to bring such a solution by introducing a DevOps platform with the Artifactory as its cornerstone stands here in the middle. But we are aiming to take care of the overall process from most left end all the way to the right end where your production environment is by using the different tools and services for the binary management, starting with Artifactory, which is actually functions as the database for your DevOps use cases. Going with X-Ray, which is our scanning tool for security violations and license compliance issues. Our distribution service that is capable of delivering the software artifacts to your production environment in a very secured way, robust functionality, and very performant. And on top of this, orchestration can be done using JFrog pipelines like with any other CI or CD tool. And that's about it. That's the holistic approach for the overall binary management and the flow of binaries throughout the process. With that, I will show you a little bit of the platform. and we will continue right after that. So let me log on to my test drive. This is the same test drive that you will be using, the one that will be created for you for 2 weeks. I will simply go and log in. And what you see here is the overall unified experience that the platform offers, starting with some sort of a dashboarding for the overall topology, including some data trends on the relevant use cases of DevOps, like the storage usage or the X-ray scanning or the distribution transactions and more of that. You can also see the relevant Artifactory use cases here. We will see more of that throughout this session. But also distribution and pipelines and X-ray are here as well, because all the platform, all the functionality is combined under the same pane of glass to bring you a unified experience. The admin use cases are also here. And maybe the last thing that needs to be known at this point is the fact that you can search everything from this global search capability, starting with repositories or users or anything like that. Okay, so let's proceed with the first topic, which is binary repositories. What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about each and every topic, and then switch to the live environment and do some hands-on in a pace that will allow you to do the same thing as I go along if you have your test drive up and running. And if not, you will get the recording and you can do it yourself whenever it suits you. So binary repositories are fully capable of actually storing all the binaries that you need in order to complete the use cases of your DevOps. We have different types of repository. First of all, based on the type of the technology. So you can see here different technology types for different repositories. Also the generic repository type, which is for anything that is not that doesn't have a designated repository type. There are several characteristics to any repository, like a specific name and a URL, the technology type that we already covered, and each repository can be either local, remote, or virtual repository. Local repositories are basically the repositories where you will store your created artifacts at, as opposed to the remote repositories, which will basically be using for proxying other remote repositories or other public repositories on the internet, and cached the artifacts that are there in order for them to be used in your environment. Virtual repositories are basically an abstraction or an aggregation of other repositories under the same endpoint. Lots of different use cases which can be enhanced by using virtual repositories, and we'll see more of that in a minute. Naming your repositories are very important. You need to have some sort of a convention, and we have some best practices around that, because the number of repositories in your setup can become very big. So some organizations manage hundreds and even thousands of repositories on their setup. We will see more configurations and replications right now. So I will go back on my environment, and if I go here on the Artifactory menu, you can see that I have the artifact browser where I can view the different repositories that I have. And I can drill down into each and every one of those to see the tree-like structure of it, and all the way to a specific artifact, which I get lots of details on. But what I will do now is I will go through the process of create a new repository. As an admin, I can go to my repositories view. I can see the different tabs for the different types of repositories. And basically, when I create a new repository, I need to choose what is the type of that repository. Let's say it is a Go repository. I can give it a name, my project dev. And basically, that's about it. I don't need to specify anything else. I can rely on the defaults, but you can see that we have some additional configurations that can be done here, like include and exclude patterns and some other advanced features, but I can simply go ahead and create my repository. The repository was created, and immediately I can start using it by uploading and by storing my binaries there. With a remote repository, again, I need to choose my repository type. Let's say it's an NPM repository. Again, I can give it a name. Let's say this is also a dev repository, and this is a remote one. As you can see, I already have the default URL for an NPM remote repository. I can change it. I can proxy other repositories as well. I can test my connectivity. And once it is OK, I can save my configuration and use this repository as a proxy to the NPM registry. So with this, I get access to all the packages in the world, because I can proxy whatever public repository or whatever remote repository that I want. With virtual repositories, to begin with, it's a little similar. So I can choose my package type. For example, this is a Maven repository. And let's say I'm going to call it something like that. And now I need to choose which are the repositories that I want to aggregate under this abstraction or under this single point of access. So I can simply go and do something like this and choose both remote and local repositories. And I can save my configuration. And I can start using that virtual repository as an abstraction of all my Maven artifacts. So if you have any questions about repositories, now is the time to place them in the chat, because I would like this session to be as interactive as possible. So let me see if there are any questions yet. OK. So it looks like it's all about the drives and no other relevant questions for repositories. There is one question about replication, because there was another tab for replication there. So basically, replication is for replicating content between different repositories and between different Artifactory setups. We will talk a little more about that during the session. There are different types of replication, but we will cover that. OK, let's move forward. Metadata. Metadata is something that can be managed for anything in Artifactory. Basically, Artifactory has the capability of giving you the option to add a key value pairs, applicative information, It can be assigned to anything, starting with repositories and folders and builds and anything like that. And you can use it for different use cases. For example, when you search for artifacts, or when you have some automatic cleanups, or when you want to release your software, these artifacts, these metadata pieces can become very valuable, and you can use them by using the UI or the REST API or the CLI and even more. The value of these keys can be used for searches as well as for download purposes and any other aggregation you might want to achieve. Again, I will show that using the UI for now, but it can be done by using the REST API that we will see later on. So if I will drill down into a specific artifact, let's say something like this, we can see the general information on this artifact, and I can see that there are some additional tabs here. One of the tabs is the Properties tab. So I can see that this artifact already has some properties with keys and values, and I can add some more. These properties were added as part of my automation or as part of my build, and I can say something like this, session, and the value is webinar. And now I can start use this value in order, for example, search for the artifacts. So for example, I can go here and use the global search for searching for artifacts. There are several types of search. There is a quick search or a checksum search. I will use the property search, and I will go with the key that we've entered, session, and the value that was webinar, hopefully with no typos. And here we go. We found the artifact that we've just marked with that metadata. Obviously, the metadata usage is much more complex than this. This is just a naive example to give you the sense of it, and we will see what can be done in addition to those naive use cases in a minute. So let's talk a little bit about the integration that we can achieve with build tools and CI tools. So starting with build tools, there are a bunch of very common, very popular build tools that are supported. And you can see the different technologies that are supported by different means of integrations. And the thing is that to integrate a build tool, in order for it to work with Artifactory, you need to configure it, and that's it. Because Artifactory actually speaks the protocol of the build tool. For example, if you are using a Docker client in order to fetch images from Docker Hub, you can configure your Docker client to log in onto an Artifactory Docker repository and to fetch the images from there. And the Docker client won't even notice that it is working with Artifactory, because Artifactory speaks the Docker protocol in order to deliver Docker images. Same goes for other technologies as well. And once you've done that, you can fetch dependencies that are already stored in Artifactory from the different repositories, either local or remote repository. Or you can try to access a remote repository with a package that is not already on Artifactory. And since it is a remote repository that proxy other repositories, that image or that artifact will be fetched from the backbone or the proxied public repository, will be downloaded onto Artifactory, and will be cached in the remote repository cache in order to become available for future requests. So let's see some integration like this. Okay. What I'm going to do, first I'm going to go to one of my repositories here, let's say a Maven repository. So you can see that for every repository, I get a chance to click the Set Me Up button. If I click the Set Me Up button, it will give you the ability to generate or to read about the configuration that needs to be done for the build tool that I'm trying to integrate. So I can put my credentials here if the credentials need to be embedded into the configuration. And here I need to generate my Maven settings in this case in order for it to become available on the Maven client. Once the settings are generated, you can see that the settings XML file was created. I can download it in order to use it on my environment, or I can upload it and deploy it onto an existing repository in Artifactory, which is considered the best case for it to be used on my environment. So let's see my my configuration here. So I have here a simple Spring Boot application. You can see that it is just, a simple Spring Boot application that I've generated using the Spring initializer, Spring Boot initializer. And I will remove it from my M2 cache, which is the Maven cache for different packages. So once it is removed, I can go ahead and run my Maven build like this. This is a simple Maven clean install. And you can see that the packages are being fetched from public repositories like Repo Spring and other repositories like that. So if I want to use my settings XML that I will downloaded from the Artifactory once I use the Set Me Up functionality, I can do something like that and actually use the -- settings for pointing the configuration that I've downloaded from Artifactory. Basically, Maven client will take everything from Artifactory. I'm going to remove it again because it's already cached by Maven, like any other build client. But now I can run it with the -- settings. And you can see that artifacts are being fetched from my Artifactory, the same one that I'm using for my demo. If there are any questions for build integration, do share them now, and I will try to answer as much as possible. There is another question on replication. If there is a status indication for the replication process. So yes, there is a monitoring replication view that you can use. And with regard to the integration, I see only one question that is actually related to the next topic. So the question was how to integrate with build servers. So this is exactly the next topic. The supported CI servers are here as well. You can see a bunch of those. And there is also the indication for others CI servers. And that's due to the fact that anything that is not implemented by, I don't know, a Jenkins plugin or an extension to TeamCity or anything like that can be implemented using the REST API and the CLI in order for integrate the functionality of your CI server with Artifactory. Now, this integration is basically supported by different plugins and different extensions that we have. Some of them are open source. Some of them are proprietary to Jenkins, for example. As I said, anything that is not there can be added or extended using the REST API or the CLI that we will see more of that in a minute. Once the CI server is configured to integrate with Artifactory, actually a similar process will take place. The CI server will download the dependencies from Artifactory and upload the created packages back onto Artifactory. Not only that, the CI server can also publish the build information onto Artifactory, and we will see that right after we will talk about the CLI. So in order to show you a little bit of that, let me hop on my Jenkins environment. A sec. Yes, okay. I'm going to share my screen now. So this is an example for a Jenkins that was integrated not with our environment, but in general. And what we can see here is that, first of all, for the Jenkins management and under the managed plugins, you can see that an Artifactory plugin is already installed, okay? So that's the first thing that you would need to do. And this is similar to other plugins and other extensions. First, you need to install or configure the extension for your specific CI server. And with that, you can also see that under the system configuration, there is already a specific Artifactory setup that is configured. And for those of you who are familiar with Jenkins, I'm sure this is nothing new. But under the system configuration, you can see a JFrog section with a specific URL and a specific name for the server with the relevant credentials. You can add additional Artifactory servers for that. And once you've done that, basically you can start utilizing the API of the Jenkins plugin for Artifactory within your pipelines. So I will just show you a snippet of something like that. Again, it is a specific language that's Groovy for Jenkins DSL, but it's similar with any other extension or any other plugin. So you can see that the server is actually defined here. And this is the name that was used when the server was configured. You can see that I'm doing some preparations here which are less relevant. But when I come to my build and deployment stage within the pipeline, I can use my Artifactory plugin in order to create a new Maven build. I am basically running it here. But on top of that, I am also creating a build info object. This build info is the entity that actually capturing the overall information about the build and store it in Artifactory. That build info has a name, has a number, and you can even collect the environment variables and the system variables. And the only thing that you need to do is something simple like that for publishing the build information onto Artifactory using the designated API. Now, if you don't have such an extensive plugin for your CI server, don't worry. It can be achieved by using the REST API or the CLI with a similar ease, and we will see that after we'll talk about the CLI. So what that gives us on top of the fact that the CI server is downloading the packages from Artifactory and storing the images or the WAR files that I'm creating as part of this build in Artifactory, what else does it give us? So in Artifactory, we also have the builds view. Any pipeline that was integrated in a similar way like I showed you will have an entry here. When I drill down, you can see the list of the runs for that build. For each run, I can drill down and see additional information, like, for example, the modules that were published as part of this build, every module with its own dependencies. I can see the environment variables that were captured from the build that ran, from the server that ran the CI from the time of the build. I can see some information from X-Ray already on the build level. I can even compare between two different builds, for example, something like this, and I get the comparison between the different packages that were used within that build, as well as the different environment variables values. This is a build integration, and this is a CI server integration. And if you have any questions on that, now would be a good time to place them. So let me see if there are any questions that were related to that. So there is a question on how to upload files onto Artifactory with Jenkins. So the actual upload command can be achieved not only with Jenkins, but also with the REST API and the CLI, and also with the Jenkins API. And I will demonstrate it when we will see the REST API. Another question is regarding the plugins for GitLab. So there is no full-fledged plugin like the plugin for Jenkins, but there is a perfect documentation on how to achieve GitLab integration. If you just go ahead and Google Artifactory GitLab integration, that can take you to the right place. Okay, another question is regarding the parameters that we saw that were added on an artifact, if this is a built-in information. So no, some of the information can be built in and can be implicitly added to the artifacts once uploaded. But other information can be added as part of the upload and as part of this build integration. And you can explore more of that by reviewing the different APIs that gives you such capabilities. Since we have a rather short time for the amount of questions you are putting in, I promise to answer everything offline and cover all the rest of the question within the next few days. Okay, build promotion. Build promotion is considered a best practice, and it can be used for actually managing the life cycle of your artifacts that were part of a specific build. It means that once you have a build running on your development artifacts, and then these artifacts were tested or were passing any other quality gate, they can be promoted to the next level of maturity. So, for example, the next level may be QA, or maybe staging environment, or maybe pre-production, or any other stage that is within your life cycle. And you can easily promote all the artifacts that were part of a specific build by using the REST API for build promotion. And by that, you actually be doing either a copy or move of artifacts between different repositories, or metadata tagging like we saw manually. Obviously, it can be done using the REST API for build promotion, or by doing both. So you can take whatever approach suits better to your needs. But the notion of build promotion is very relevant when you have a big development organization with different life cycle phases which you want to control. Now, you can do the promotion as many times as you want because it has zero impact on the setup. Artifactory is checksum-based storage. And since that, any artifact will be only stored once in the database, no matter how many times you copy it from one repository to another, or no matter how many times you move it from one repository to another, the actual binary will only be stored once. So you can do that according to your life cycle on your development environment. And if you are choosing to use designated repositories, make sure that the naming convention also represent the life cycle phase. And we have a white paper on that. You can simply Google for Artifactory repository naming conventions, and you will hit that. Next topic is the security and the permissions. It's really straightforward because when you are managing users and groups, this is really similar to any other tool or any other service that you are using. With the notion of permission targets, it's a little different, but let me explain. Permission targets are basically the equivalent for roles, I would say. You can have different resources combined, and resources are different repositories or builds or other repositories, or other resource types that are part of different aspects of the JFrog platform. And you can have different resources combined with different users and different groups under the same permission target in order to achieve a specific access level or a specific permission level based on the different permission levels that you configured. The permission model for all the JFrog services is aligned, and it is managed from the same place. Users and groups can be managed externally, like in your LDAP server or any other single sign-on integration that you want to achieve. And the fact that all the module all the permission model is managed in the same way for all the products, gives you a unified experience with your security and your access control. On top of the permission model, there are a bunch of other security features which time is too short to cover. I've already mentioned the LDAP integration and the SSO implementation, but we also have support for access tokens, which is the recommended way for automation, for authentication from within your automation scripts or automation integrations. There are also API keys and encryption and password encryption as well. And let's see the live environment again. So under the admin menu again, if I go to identity and access, I can go here and I can create a new user. And I can give it an email, and maybe as an admin, maybe not. I can give him a password. And this is really straightforward. Not when I'm having typos. Okay. Now we've added a user. I can add him to one of the groups. I can add a group. I won't go through this. But with the permissions, you can see that I can create new permissions, or I can use an existing one. Let's create a new permission. I need to select the different resources which I want this permission to be enforced on. So I click my repositories, and I can choose different repositories. I can choose any repository or any local repository, and that's fine for now. That is my webinar permission. And now I can add my users. So for example, I can add David here, and David is the user that I've added. Of course, I can also add some groups, and this is where I manage my permissions. So I can say this user, due to that permission, webinar permission, can only read from the repositories that are part of these resources. Or he can also, I don't know, deploy stuff onto these repositories. But he cannot annotate. Annotate is marking and adding metadata on the artifacts within this repository. So this is the level of control that you can achieve with the different permission levels on the different resources, and everything is managed from here. I can create my permission, and that's it. Just in a glimpse, the security menu is very rich for LDAP integration, or for SAML SSO, or for other security settings that can be seen here, like how to handle password invalidation, and blocking users, and everything that you actually need to manage the security on your setup. Any questions on security? Security or permissions? So, yeah, so there is a question on the previous subject regarding the cleanup of old builds. So there is no mechanism for that, but there is a build retention policy that you can manage by using the REST API. So you can actually enforce build retention when you activate this REST API, and to say how many build runs of a specific job you want to keep within Artifactory. In addition to that, you can also use plugins. We won't cover plugins today, but if you will Google for Artifactory user plugins, you will be able to get additional functionality by implementing some stuff and actually extend the capabilities from that are built in Artifactory. Okay, as I said, the rest of the question will be answered offline because there are dozens of those. So let's move on for now. Okay, that's actually our last topic. So let's talk a little bit about Artifactory automation. There are different use cases for automation in general, especially when we are talking about Artifactory. So one might want to have an onboarding procedure regarding the registration of all the users and the creation of new repositories and new permission targets. All this process can be automated. It's not a built-in capability of Artifactory, but many organizations go through the automation process of the onboarding. Other might want to have something much more specific, like deploying some stuff or downloading some stuff, or actually aggregating some artifacts in a bundle that can be distributed or can be deployed somewhere. Some housekeeping capabilities that you want to achieve, like cleanups that we already mentioned with regard to the build retention, or basically automate anything that is available by the UI and more of that. So the capabilities within Artifactory are very extensive. We did see the metadata. We did see the build and CI integrations using designated plugin. But there is also a full REST API that is highly documented. And actually, everything that you see me doing on the UI using the GUI of the platform is utilizing the REST API under the hood. So the REST API is obviously more extent than that, but even the UI is using the REST API. There is also a CLI tool which is very optimized for some of the tasks. It is also using the REST API under the hood, but it gives you a more complex scenario and more high functionality use cases. There is also the Artifactory query language, which we will see in a minute, and the plugin framework that I've mentioned that we won't cover today. So some examples for the REST API. You can see here different endpoints, like for pinging and make sure that the health of the environment is okay, or for downloading a specific file from a specific repository, or create a repository that is a very common use case when you automate your onboarding process. For the JFrog CLI, as I've mentioned, it is a smart client that will give you a much more simpler interface than the REST API. Once you get the drift of the actual syntax of the REST API, it becomes very fluent in order to achieve some stuff, and very intuitive. And it will turn your automation scripts and integrations to be more robust and more maintainable, and basically even more efficient. The efficiency is actually achieved by a couple of things. One of them is the fact that the CLI is checksum aware. So basically, it will not upload anything onto Artifactory if it's already in Artifactory. nothing will go over the wire other than the actual checksum, because the CLI is capable of calculating that checksum. Additional to that, some of the use cases for the CLI are concurrent, so you achieve some parallelism and resumability, and with that you achieve better efficiency. I think that one of the unique features is the multiple configuration support that we will see in a minute. Basically, you can work with several Artifactory setups and switch between them as you go along in a very easy way. And another cool and unique feature is the simulation mode. All the commands, all the CLI commands supports a flag for dry run. And basically, it will give you the relevant response and the relevant output without executing anything. So this is very important before you delete something or before you do a massive operation to check that everything is in place. The syntax of the CLI, and I'm drilling a little here because we will see some demo on that. JFrog is the name of the tool, which is actually an open source written in Go. The target can be different JFrog services like Artifactory or distribution or X-Ray. The command name is different functionalities that you want to achieve, like upload and download. Any command has also the relevant abbreviation. So, for example, the upload command is simply a U or something like that, and some additional parameters and arguments, both for global utilization or the command options or argument to that command. These are some examples, but I will show more on the live environment. The Artifactory query language is basically a proprietary syntax which is very similar to JSON. It is very powerful. All the AQL commands are being translated to highly tuned database queries, and it supports any repository type, no matter if it is local or remote, if it's Maven or Docker, and it can be utilized both from the REST API as well as from the CLI. So combining the capabilities and the power of AQL with your CLI or REST API commands within your automation scripts and integrations will give you anything. You can achieve anything against the Artifactory setup with those three. This is a demo syntax for a rather simple AQL query. So, for example, here you query for only files with a specific size that were never downloaded. Therefore, the statistics on the downloads will be null. They were uploaded by someone, and they are either of jar or zip file type. With regard to the output, you want to include on the output only the name and the size for these artifacts, and you want to sort them according to the name in a descending order. So this is the syntax. Unlike the CLI, which I already said that you, after a little usage, you will become very fluent in it, the AQL will take you a little more time. The syntax is not that complex, but it might be harder to adapt to it. Okay, let's see some CLI demo. So I have some commands which I prepared in advance in order to eliminate typos. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start with JFrog, which is our CLI, Artifactory config, not double F. And I want to show my config. So this is my configuration. I have in my CLI configuration, I have 3 different setups, which I can switch between by using another CLI command. Currently, I want to use my environment for this webinar, which is the one that I've been using from the start. And this is my default environment. So I can simply do something like JFrog Artifactory ping. And this will give me the indication that everything in the environment is OK. It's not just an open port indication. This is basically going all through the architectural layers of Artifactory, all the way through the database. So it's more than just an open port indication. Let's do something like that. I want to basically create a new build. So with that, I will go ahead and collect the environment variables for build number 30 of build job that is named webinar. The CLI will give me some indications on that, but the information was already collected. Now I can go ahead and download some stuff from my Artifactory. So this is my download command. I'm going to a repository that is called generic local. I'm fetching a specific file that is named Helm, and I'm indicating my build name and my build number. By doing that, any artifact that I will download to this environment will be actually considered as a dependency for that build. I know that the time elapsed, but I will continue for additional, I assume, 5 minutes. Now, the fact that 0 files were actually downloaded here is because of the fact that the CLI is checksum aware, and this file was already downloaded to this environment of the CLI, and therefore nothing was actually went over the wire, but the operation as a whole was successful. I can go ahead and add some dependencies from my local file system. I can do something like that. I'm adding all the files which are under this path to the dependencies of build number 30 of the job webinar. So with this, all the dependencies were added. And now I'm uploading some stuff from my environment here. This is the upload command going for that jar file. It's uploading it to a specific repository, and again specifying the build number and the build name. The file was uploaded, and basically my build is over. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm downloading some stuff, I'm uploading some stuff, I'm doing some other functionalities that I need to do on my environment. Everything is considered in my build. And now, after I'm done, I can publish my information that was collected by the CLI. The information was actually published successfully. And now, if I will go to my environment under the Artifactory menu and the builds, we can see my build webinar with the run number 30. If I drill down into this, I can see the different modules that were created. I can see the different dependencies. I can see the environment variables that were collected from my machine due to the fact that I use the relevant command of the CLI. Now, in order to promote a build, let's see another command. I have here a target repository that I've created in advance. Let's delete all the content from that repository. So this repository is now empty, okay? Now I want to take all the artifacts that were collected as part of my webinar build and actually promote those to the repository that is named target repository. I want to include the dependencies, and I want to copy it from the original repository to the target repository. Not only that, on the fly, I would like to add some properties as well for all the artifacts that are part of this build. So by doing this, the actual promotion took place, and we can see that in my target repository, currently I will refresh, and I can see the different components that were added, the dependencies, as well as the uploaded file. And not only that, it also have my properties that were added as part of my build promotion. I hope that gave you the right sense of the CLI tool. And with that, let's recap. We talked a little bit about binary management in general, and we saw the JFrog platform in a high level. There are other webinars that covers other functionalities of the platform. We talked a little bit about repositories, and we did see how to create them using the UI. We also managed the metadata capabilities and the use cases around it. We saw the search on the platform, and we saw some build integrations using the Maven client that was configured to interact with Artifactory, as well as a Jenkins configuration to interact with Artifactory, and a Jenkins pipeline snippet that actually demonstrate the usage of the Artifactory plugin DSL within that pipeline. We talked a little bit about security and the permission models. And last but not least, we saw some automation capabilities around the REST API, the AQL, and mainly the CLI that we also saw live. I hope it was beneficial for you. I will not go into the details of this diagram now, but you will be able to watch it on the recording. And thank you for being with me and for listening. All the questions will be followed up offline.